Monday, August 14, 2023. And our favorite time of the year, budgets. So there's two items on the agenda tonight. One is fire emergency management, and the second one will be the park and rec, the budget. So we'll start with fire. Thank you, Shane.
Can I remind all council people to please turn their microphones on for the recording? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Don.
I guess this is pretty much
Your mic on, Don. There you go.
pretty much a want list tonight.
Yes, what we have tonight is, after meetings, we put together a proposed want list for the fire department and all departments, what they would like to see if we basically had unlimited resources. What the chief will present tonight is highlights of areas where maybe there's been increases of significance or decreases. And whatever questions you have, let them know.
So this might be an odd question, but after the presentation of each department, is there such a thing as to know, okay, this is gonna cost X percent of levy to, you know, cause it'd be kinda know what we're looking at as we're going through the process, so I can write it down, say, okay, Parks and Recs, and so then, when it comes time to adjust the levy, we're not like, I mean, does that make sense? Say, you know, because every levy, what did we say last year, every?
Every 1% of levy last year was worth $25,000.
And that's gonna change this year, right?
Correct.
But if we base it on last year's model per se, maybe we'd have a general idea of how much levy percent that this particular budget is going to, does that, so then we
Yes.
kind of like have
How
a,
much it's going up or down relative to last year,
yes,
yes. We can, and what we anticipate doing is presenting this to you, indicating what its overall effect is. When all of the presentations are made, then department heads, myself, will go back with your kind of directive, like, this is too little, or this is too much. How do we prioritize between departments?
I think the other thing for me as we kind of go through the budgeting is that like we get these numbers and then like you guys as departments will go back through and like cut down things. And sometimes we don't know what that is. And so like constituents would come up to us and be like, well, you guys decided to get a boat this year for this department. And maybe that's one of the things that was actually cut. And when we were like looking at like those percentages at the end of the day. So it would also be really nice when you guys do pare down your budgets for whatever reason, that if there are those larger ticket items that are no longer going to be in the budget, that we're aware of them. I'm not asking for every dollar, but it would be really nice to know what's being taken out that might be a larger ticket item.
that's a great point, because maybe we're thinking that's probably something that we want, right? Is that what you're kind of thinking?
Well, I think the department heads and the city administrator are competent to know what is a need versus a want. But I think that if we're having to have these conversations with constituents about what we vote on ultimately for the budget, and something's been taken out that initially was in there, that we should be aware that those larger ticket items were taken out or pushed to the next year or what have you. Because those are gonna be the conversations that are gonna be asked of us. So that would just be nice to know.
And we've already started that.
And that's, yeah, but I'm
Yes.
just saying, because this is the first presentation, and then what this dollar amount is, isn't always what we see at the end.
Yep.
But how you got to that, we're not terribly privy to at times, line by line. So it'd just be nice to have an overall understanding and view of that. So that's all I ask.
And I did try, I guess, when I came up with this budget for the year, or for next year, I did try to include notes in there to try to give you somewhat of a description. I know it was a little bit of a task, but kind of inheriting the department and then just with a first budget proposal and stuff like that, like exactly how it was gonna work. I figure the more transparent I can be, the more questions can be answered beforehand while you guys are looking at this stuff. So One of the first things, I guess, that I looked into when reviewing this and discussed with both Corky and Audrey was to see if there was a way I could consolidate a couple of my line items. And that just had to do, looking back on the last 10 years of history on every line item that I have. And there were certain things that were coded in a couple different areas. And I could not get a good gauge of what my line item should be when I come here to present it to you. So I asked Audrey, and I don't think it's too much of a headache yet, maybe, okay. We're gonna consolidate a couple of those line items. Actually, I'm kind of skipping over the front page. We can talk about revenues towards the end here if we need to. But I do wanna, we have like a 218 special clothing. I'm actually consolidating that into my safety expense account because when you start looking at,
Just make sure you look at the second page.
oh, I'm
It's
sorry.
called page 32 on the top, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And go to line item 101422000218. You come down, there's a category called special clothing.
Okay,
0218?
Yes,
Okay, special clothing, okay.
so that's gonna be consolidated. When it came to looking through this, and like I said, first year, and just kind of looking, and I see I've got a repairs equipment. There's no line item for like general maintenance and ongoing maintenance, so I'm going to utilize my repairs equipment as repairs and maintenance for equipment. So with that, I've also consolidated my hose replacement, and I've also consolidated my annual maintenance. I'm going to take some of the funds from annual maintenance, that's gonna go into that 0221. It's also gonna have a little bit that has to go into my 0222, which is right underneath the building and repairs, just for the annual testing and stuff like that that we have at the fire station.
So the annual maintenance is on your fire equipment only?
And that's gonna,
Hoses.
yeah, that's gonna get absorbed just into my equipment maintenance line item.
Okay.
Just trying to schedule, and like I said, trying to break things down. I'm trying to get it back to being simplified, instead of having a line item for every purchase, which it kind of felt like it was going that way. I'm trying to redact that and bring that back, so I've only got X amount, and I can still have a solid description of what that line item is for. This is just me trying to simplify that.
Sure.
and you can also see then the various line items have comments.
Could I, since we're real close here, building repairs and maintenance, shouldn't that be under municipal buildings, that fund we have for building and grounds? We've got a fund, shouldn't, like, building repair, shouldn't that be under that item instead of the firefighters or the chief's budget? We've got I was gonna come and talk to you, Audrey, and I forgot all about it, but we do have municipal building and grounds.
Municipal lands and buildings.
Buildings, there you go. And I'm just kinda curious what's in that account, but I'm just wondering, shouldn't we use any maintenance on our buildings come out of that fund?
Would it be hard to track though, if you're trying to see like what the maintenance is per building?
It could go under that category if we supplied notes in that fund that this went for fire, this went for the shelter at Eklund. It could come under that. One of the problems we found when we were doing budgets is if there had been a category that had existed in the past, you can't take it out. It'll be a zero, but you just can't remove it. It's something we can sure talk about, I mean, but we wanna make sure we track it as to each department.
Right, well, at one time, years ago, that was a very healthy account, and I'm not even sure what's in it now, but, I thought, that account was basically for city-owned buildings, for any maintenance, repairs, whatever.
Well, we can sure make a note, we'll look at it to
Yeah.
see
Just,
if we
kinda-
can track it individually, so we got a better idea what land and buildings it applies to.
so, just FYI, you know, when we come down to the final budget, maybe there's some funding in there that we could move around if, I don't even know how healthy that account is, so.
Well, there are a couple that are still in here that are probably, that will fluctuate a little bit. One of them being 0306 volunteer fireman fees. I know Corky is working extremely diligently on getting the contract signed that they're currently working off an extension from 2022. So we were working and putting a lot of time into trying to meet on the same page or meet somewhere to get that finalized. And at that point in time, there's a number that can be placed there. Right now, we are still running off of our old numbers,
And Shane, we're talking about the volunteer fire,
the volunteer firefighters
Part that are in front of
we have a
Walmart.
contract, yeah.
right?
They're, and then we still have personnel at the main station too.
Yeah, yeah, but
So, but yes.
that's part of,
Yep.
okay.
Is there any questions on any of this?
So are you gonna start at the, I mean, eventually, are you gonna start at the top with the revenues and go through that, or?
We can, yeah.
I think you were saying you do that at the end, right?
No, we can do that when, like, if you want to go back to that page 31, we can do that.
I'm just, yeah.
Okay.
Because
So-
it's,
One of the questions is, I mean, I know last year we focused a lot on revenues in each department. So what, and I'm looking year-to-date, so year-to-date, is this through July?
yeah, I think it's, yeah, through July 31st.
So, I see where, we're trending. Seems like on the, licensing and rental program, we're trending a lot more than we've had in the past. I'm just kind of curious as to, I don't know if anybody knows what happened with the building permits and signs. Did we just have a lot more building permits back in 2022 versus what happened that year for revenue, the revenue part?
Before we jump, I guess, too deep into that, one thing you're looking at, when you see this revenues, and this is a discussion I've had with Audrey and Corky, once again, to simplify, when you look at my budget compared to another department's budget, we went through, and there's a few of these line items that are actually going to be transferred and be under building official Greg Hefta. That
Under what?
they're gonna be under Greg Hefta.
Oh,
They will no longer show up on my revenue sheet
Okay,
because they are his revenues, they are not mine.
so is that probably what happened then on that 2022 for the building permits and signs? That revenue was taken from, by your department, it probably should have been under Greg's?
You know, I guess that's, once again, being new, and kind of talking with Audrey about it and kind of bringing her up to speed on some of that as well. That would probably be a best question for Greg to be able to tell you, depending on projects and stuff like that. That's gonna be his
And
number.
he will be able to do that.
Okay, so,
So, can
you
I
could,
just clarify then? So Shane, when you inherited all of this, this was just how it was already in the
This is
budgets
how
for
it's
you?
always been done.
Okay, so you're just reimagining that, considering Greg tends to be the one that takes care of the permits and what have you.
To me, yeah, it's,
Makes better
when
sense.
you guys look at this, it's confusing because you guys are looking at these accounts and you're gonna ask me a question about an account that I actually have no control over whatsoever. So we're gonna try and go through those. So hopefully by the time like 25 rolls around, this is gonna look a lot more simplified for you when it comes to my budget, and then Greg's will be broken down. It's been a long history back, I'm guessing this would state all the way back to when the building official was actually under the fire department. So, and I think that 2016, 2017, they actually made the building official his own department head,
so there's no revenues that you would, be getting under your department then?
The rental program will still be operating under the fire department. And that one, when you do look at that jump there, for 23, the current budget of what it was compared to what the actual year-to-date actual was. The reason that that number is so different is because we ran that program for 2 years. So we did the rate increase, but we also made it for a 2-year certification. So essentially would have doubled. Now, the reason that we did that is because I'm gonna be working with the IT department, hopefully with Chad and Zach. One of the ways, I can't show you on paper how it would pan out, but we're trying to get it so it's an online registration. Instead of spending countless hours preparing letters, preparing envelopes, getting everything mailed, there's so much time that's involved with that. Where I look at, my example was registration for the park department for activities. Chad said there's a way that we can explore this. We can actually put this online. People can actually register their properties online. And as everything else is going in the digital world, this is one of those things that we're trying to explore.
Okay, so one of the, I mean, on a separate note, last year when we were talking to Tim, there was some type of an inspection fee for rental. We had talked about increasing that. You know, Tim said, well, I thought we should have been increasing it for a lot of years. Now, did we ever increase that, or?
That did get increased.
So where does that show up on the where does that show up on the revenue line for 2023?
That would be, if you look under that 2183 licenses rental program, where it's got that $63,470.
So that's why that increased more, so more so from that than what you were just previously talking about, correct?
Well, essentially, so it went up $10 per property, but we did it over 2 years. So we made them pay for 2
Oh,
years.
okay, so it's the same
It did
thing.
go up a little bit, but now it's doubled for 23. And it's
Okay.
gonna be extremely minimal for 24.
24.
So it's a 2-year,
Yep.
For
So
this
did
year,
we
it was
increase-
to
did we
buy
in-
us some time.
so we increased it because it's 2 years, but did we increase it?
We increased it on the amount, and it shows an increase because we collected the increased amount for 2 years, not one.
Okay. So is there opportunity, I mean, to look at, I mean, I'm gonna ask this for every department, how did that go, and is there an opportunity to increase again?
I would say there is an opportunity to increase it again. At this point in time, we didn't have too much terrible feedback last year. We did have a few that were disgruntled with it. But I guess I challenged myself knowing that that's kind of what we were focusing on with that revenue and trying to generate that. I'm trying to express other options besides just, with the fire department, you kind of look and, yeah, okay, there's one major revenue source that we have, and that's the rental program. I'm trying to reach out and look and try to find other ways that we can gain revenue, whether it's when we put on fire extinguisher training. We do that for all the businesses and stuff, and that's free of charge. Well, maybe we can put a little bit of a charge on that just because there's all the companies and they want it for insurance reasons and everything else. Well, that's an untapped resource. We also have a training compound, and I'll probably revert to this later, but we've got a training compound, you know, out by the Kreitzberg's property out there. It's got our burn building. It's also got a couple Connex boxes. We just added another one. My plan is to add another one of those and kind of continue to build that compound, because what we're finding out is the way that after COVID, everything has gone to what they call like a hybrid training. So for students to go in and get their Fire 1, to get their Fire 2, a lot of that stuff is online. And what we're starting to find out, and this is firsthand as an instructor, is that when it comes to the hands-on portion of things, they're really behind the 8 ball. And so you can't pack enough into one Saturday or 2 Saturdays putting tools and ropes and ladders in their hands. So my future vision is I would like to build a training compound out there and actually have it become a regional hub. So the city of Crookston would then have a regional hub where all departments could come in and we can run this. And I've had communications with M-State and Moorhead, who's one of the bigger fire service colleges, to talk about developing that plan.
So are you familiar with the one Grand Forks had? Because I was kind of involved with that one a little bit. And they had a trailer that simulated that they got from a grant. But they had a compound out there, just like you're talking about, with they had cars, compound, or a car
The
thing. And
props,
then,
yep.
yeah.
And that's,
But you don't have I mean, they don't treat that as a regional?
the other side of the
I mean,
river,
you what?
on the other side of the
Yeah,
river.
right. But
Different state.
So I don't know, big vision, call me greedy, but there's a lot of departments that M-State that we teach through in different hubs or different cities, and we go there, and sometimes they just don't have the equipment that we need to train on. Or if we can bring something like that and build something here,
okay, yeah,
That's
I'm
what
getting
I'm looking
sidetracked,
for.
so, sorry. I just really want to focus on if we can, like you're talking, if we can gain revenue in any place that we possibly can, and then possibly even increase. I know last year, we did a lot of increasing in all over the city, and if we can continue to look at that and see if we can increase it again.
yeah, and that will be nothing, that won't be anything that gets forgotten. It was just,
Okay.
when we did the big 2-year jump, plus then all of a sudden we increased it a little bit, it was like, I might just want to bide my time with the general public and the property owners at that time. Still understanding we got to create revenue. I'm just trying to explore maybe some other options that might be more beneficial.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Shane, I appreciate the idea of the automated piece, because I imagine that's gonna also save you a lot of money and man-hours too, so.
Yeah, with supplies, and
Definitely.
like I said, and the man-hours thing, I can't show that to you on a printout.
Right,
But the productivity and that time spent, we can then focus on other things.
well, I also think it brings our city a little bit up to date, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Provides that opportunity, so,
Yep.
thank you.
But I guess, I mean, if that kind of clarifies a little bit. I know there is one that is still sitting in here. It's under intergovernment revenue and federal grants. There's nothing there. There's never been anything budgeted. I went back and I kind of looked at the history of that as well. One thing with that is I have, unfortunately, it's the firefighter that is going to depart us. But since he came on, his grants have been a big thing for him. And we've been going and we've been trying to fill out some paperwork and trying to gather some information on our best cause. Knowing that there's funding out there, that's also one resource that, like I said, when I look back, we haven't tapped it. Take that back, we have tapped it, but we've only tapped it in a time of absolute dire need. When we got our SCBA's, we got lucky. We got that grant, because if we didn't get that grant, we were really gonna be staring down the barrel at some point in time about those. Well, that's life safety, I mean, that's a primary thing for a firefighter. We're not going into a fire if we don't have them. So that is one line that, hopefully you will start to see numbers on as we actively do try. And I know I've gotten emails, I think Corky sent me one, I've gotten them from Kerry. There are grants, there are programs out there that we can.
How does that work when you help other areas, other districts out with a fire, and you respond to a fire outside of our area? Is that just something that everybody agrees that they're going to do for the betterment of everybody, or is there charges that are set for at least our expenses? Does that happen at all from district to district?
Those are mutual aid agreements.
Okay.
And we've got those with 13 surrounding townships. And yeah, realistically, that's one of those that everything kind of goes on the shelf, and we just go to help another community
Right.
just as fast as they're gonna come and help us.
So when somebody comes to help us, we don't get charged then either?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
There are two that you should be be aware of. We have agreements with American Crystal to provide fire protection to them. That's the one I referred to earlier this evening. It hasn't been updated since 2006. Maintain the same. We will be updating that. Also for Polk County.
Yep.
Same agreement, it hasn't been updated since 2006. We will be updating that. Shane and I have worked on an attempted calculation of either inflation or buying power for that dollar amount. That was in 2006. What would you need right now to equate to that? So we will be working with them. In fact, What's that?
And UMC.
And the University of Minnesota Crookston as well.
So if we respond to another area for a fire and say our equipment gets damaged, how does that work? Is that on us then?
Yeah, usually, when we go and we respond, everything's still under our control. So that's just a risk that we're gonna take if needed.
Okay.
But we are paying for the volunteer firefighters if they're to respond to things that we're doing within the city limits on an annual basis, correct?
Yep, that was
there
that
is-
contract I
Yeah,
referred to.
so there is some cost.
Now, I know I brought this up.
Just that line item.
Now, going down to Revenue Avenue. When I was down at the Detroit Lakes Fire Department charges, when they make fire calls to different, they charge the individual. Now, we had a situation when I was down there in my business, one of our propane tanks was a leak that they went out to a customer, the fire department did, and then they charged Ferrogas, the company I used to work for, $1,000 for responding to that call. So I brought that up with Tim last year, and they said, well, they really haven't really done that, but I'm just throwing that out there, is obviously it's something that could be captured on stuff like that. Maybe it could be just a minimal something at first, but I mean, how many fire calls does a person respond to each year, and is there potential there? And is it common with other fire districts around the state? I mean, have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I am aware of that. It's the same as if you look on like your homeowner's insurance policy. It's written in there about fire service charges. So if somebody's house does burn down or something like that, yeah, the fire department could then bill for X amount and be able to reclaim some of that funds.
And that's what the guy told me down there. He says, well, your insurance company will cover, and I think that's why they set the amount to what they did, because most of the insurance, they did a survey, and the insurance companies covered X amount, so they figured, well, if they're collecting that from the customer, the insurance would pay the customer, and it was a net effect zero for the person. So I'm not saying we should or shouldn't, I'm just throwing it out there as a potential revenue source to capture some expense, because it's expenses that you're going out there to check these, so maybe we can get a little bit back, you know.
So you're looking at business or residents or both?
I think it was both.
Yeah,
It'll
there can be
encompass.
predetermined amount in your, I'll call it homeowners or fire protection, where they just say, you have a fire in your house, it's $2,000, we'll pay. No question, just $2,000. We can just try to track that, send them a letter.
So maybe send out some feelers and just ask, you know, some of these, I know Detroit Lakes is a volunteer, but I talked to the police chief down there, or the fire chief down there, and told me why they did it, and I just don't know how much, if they're getting a lot of pushback, or, I think they've been doing it for a lot of years, but I'm just, like I said, in the day and age of trying to lower our levies, you know, I think it's something that we should at least look at.
But I don't know, is that kind of a slippery slope? I mean, just because, you know, you're residents and you're paying taxes and that's part of the service you get.
Right, right.
But you can ask, you can say, do you have fire insurance? And if you do, give us a copy of the policy and we'll read through it. See if there's 1,000, 2,000, whatever they set it at.
Well, is that something that can be done if they don't have, so then would we do it, take it on a case-by-case basis to see if they, I mean, is that legal? or-
Sure.
I guess
say-
at the end of the day,
Not
just
huge.
being conscious of our time, but I think we need to also remember that we're not trying to nickel and dime the residents of Crookston. We're wanting to cover cost and make sure that we're providing the services. I do wonder with Detroit Lakes, if you're saying they're a volunteer fire department versus we actually pay firefighters as part of our taxes. I think we just want to be conscious of that, that we're not trying to like find every way to charge the
Granted,
residents.
but at the end of the day, it's about trying to keep our levy as low as we possibly
Agreed,
can.
agreed
And
with
so the
you. Mm-hmm.
people that are getting the service, you know, I feel that maybe they should possibly pony up a little bit more. That's somebody that didn't get the service.
Yeah, yeah, I just want to be conscious of us just not trying to find every way to charge residents outside of already the taxes they're paying. So just being conscious of that as well. But I understand not wanting to raise the levy either too.
Well, we can just make a note
Yeah.
to, from this point forward, if we respond to a fire call, just follow up with, do you have insurance? With whom? We can look at the policy. Many policies do have a predetermined, like a medical that you get with your homeowners. If someone's hurt on your property, they
I
pay
mean, I know
$5,000.
ambulance service,
Yep.
they charge you.
So,
Yes, that's really all I got for revenues. Like I said, we're gonna streamline some of that stuff. I did have that one, sorry, on the state grants. We kinda got off on federal grants there, but then on state grants, and it's, right now, and Audrey just pointed out, it kinda shows a credit there, or a negative right there for $10,000. Looking into that, that's actually police and fire state aid. So the numbers that you see there in 21 actual, 22 actual, current budget of 23 is at 30. That number, that where it says -10 for 24, we can actually plug that back in as a 30 because that's something that comes annually, usually in September from the state. So just so you're aware, when you compare those two. We talked about the special fire services. And then we do get reimbursed, and it's not on here, and this is one thing that we do gotta talk about, with Audrey, and not talk about, we'll try to figure out is where, when we send guys to training and we go through state certifications, all that kind of stuff, there's funding available to be reimbursed for that. So when we start to look at that, the money that we spend, if it's reimbursable, but for as long as I stared at this and tried to snoop through accounts, I could not find exactly where that was at, so we will try to streamline that for you too, because I think one of the things that you'll see is I am actually asking for a little bit more in my training budget to start this year, but I want to be able to show you on kind of a simplified line item that I might have spent X, but understand that we got this back here. The only difference that we have there is as we work off of a calendar year, they work off of fiscal, so they work July 1st to June 30th. So then we don't start to see that money till the middle of the year again. So we just constantly submit stuff. And then towards the end of the year, or towards the end of their fiscal year, then that's when the reimbursements and stuff come back. So we're gonna try and get that straightened out a little bit. There was a couple of training years where there was credits to it and wasn't exactly sure how that worked out. So if you can give us some time, we're gonna try and get all that stuff lined up so we can actually show you where that reimbursement money is coming in.
So basically you have a pot of money that would just get utilized and then reimbursed every year.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
We try to submit everything that we know is submittable by the MBFTE and everything, and then at the end of the year, they gotta sit and they gotta calculate and allocate how many firefighters do you have, how much can we reimburse them, and go from there.
For state and federal, do they differ what's available for volunteer versus paid departments?
Fire department to them is a fire department, so firefighters are firefighters. I guess, I can just move into some of the capital improvements unless anybody sees anything.
What's 0243, the last four digits? Safety expense. I see it's 3,500 to, or, yeah, 3,500 to 8,000. What is safety expense for what?
So consolidating that with that special clothing,
Okay,
then my safety expense, what that's gonna be for is small equipment purchases, small PPE items, coveralls, gloves, any maintenance or repair or replacement to those small items. And then it's also gonna be one thing that we're focusing on now is firefighter well-being. So cancer prevention, anything like that, that's where that funding is for. And that's why I've kind of changed that. I've got that there. It's also used as a separate, or not a separate, but in that line item, firefighters' duty boots, not the structure boots that they wear, but like during the day, they've got duty boots, and those have to meet a standard. So the money for those boots for everybody comes out of that line item as well.
Okay, thank you.
So, under the revenue again for, special fire services,
Yep, that $7,000 that's there.
Is that what you just talked
That's what
about?
we were talking about with
Okay,
American Crystal
sorry.
and UMC and,
all right.
yeah, Polk County.
That will, in all probability, change, but we gotta get after them after 17 years.
So for the motor vehicles, there seems to be a big jump there. Is there certain ones that you know you need to replace next year?
Say that again, I'm
So
sorry.
for motor vehicles, for expenses, there was nothing for the last 2 years, and then it jumped significantly for next,
What page is that?
550.
32, the very bottom.
Page 32.
What page?
Page
32 at the
Page
very bottom.
32,
Third from the bottom.
yeah, motor vehicles.
550.
Give me 1 second. So the money, city sets aside money annually to go in there, and so that number should actually, when you look at 21 and 22, would actually be $50,000. And that went up to 55. And now you're asking the significant increase that is there.
91.
91.
It is quite a jump, and one thing when I looked at that and knowing that costs were going up on fire apparatus and equipment and stuff like that. Can I hand these out? Yeah, I did. You and I might have to share, I gotta see.
So like that, like you're saying that 55,000, that probably won't be spent within this fiscal year then, right?
So what this is now a spreadsheet that I've created to show kind of with inflation.
Thank you.
So if you're looking at this spreadsheet, on the very left-hand side there, it's just kind of that capital plan. This is for that 550 account that we're talking about. So we've got a pickup as a response vehicle, Unit 2. In my notes, that vehicle is still supposed to be getting repurposed within the city. It should go to the park department. We got a hold up there with some state bid stuff that they haven't released yet, so we're trying to get that. So that vehicle is supposed to be replaced this year still. That's our goal. When we bought that truck in 2013, we bought it for $26,542.
So last year when this was, when you did it, did you do the budget last year or was that Tim
That
still?
was not
Tim.
me.
That's Tim.
So last year when that 55,000 was put in the budget, that was for earmarked, that was for something specific, correct?
45,000 of that was earmarked for Unit 2 to replace that, the full-time responding.
Okay, so that's the question. So that 55,000 will not be spent this fiscal year probably, right?
If we can get state bids and we can get a contract to be able to replace that pickup, it would be spent.
Okay. Then if it's not, that doesn't go to the next fiscal year, does it? That goes back into, because we levied for that 55,000 partly for it. So if that doesn't get spent, I mean, theoretically, we didn't spend 55,000 that we levied for. So that goes into, that 55,000 would go into a reserve or
Correct.
A designated reserve.
designated?
for the fire
For
department.
fire trucks or fire.
Okay, so that's
vehicles.
not a
It doesn't go back into general.
general,
It's not unrestricted, yeah.
so it's not unrestricted.
Correct.
So no matter how long that gets drawn out, that 55, we levied for that 55,000, so if we don't spend it for 5 years, that's still in the restricted reserves.
Audrey?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay,
Carries forward to a time where you use
Use
it
it.
for one of these items replacement.
We kind of budgeted money in replacement of fire trucks every year, though. We, because of the price of a fire truck, so we kept putting money in a restricted reserve to build up. So all of a sudden, we need a new fire truck. We're not looking at a $900,000.
so follow my questioning here, if we needed a pickup that last year we budgeted 55,000 for, and then we get through the year and we don't buy that pickup, and then we don't ever intend to buy the pickup, let's just say, well, after further consideration, we're not buying the pickup. Now we got that 55,000 is restricted reserve, now we want to buy a fire truck. Can that does that 55,000 go towards the fire truck then?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's within the fire department realm, but and it's there for that. That's why when you see some resolutions, it says the source of this funds is. And again, there's a matter of interpretation. Everything doesn't just have one definition. Yeah, you can move that, my opinion, move it over. But it stays within the department. It's not unreserved for park and rec playground equipment. You can't just move it over there.
Right.
So what you do with this estimated annual budget is you put those in a purse, anticipating that in 2027, there's a replacement cost for that command vehicle you won.
Yep.
By putting 10% into reserve for that replacement cost, by 27, we will have accrued the funds to purchase the vehicle.
Because right now, when I looked at this schedule, there are funds in that reserve account right now. If I plug even that formula at $55,000 in, everything would be good, great, and grand until 2030. And looking at our price to replace that engine, that would be 30 years old at the time, it would probably take us $200,000 to $300,000, probably $200,000 in the hole. So when I saw that, I guess I came and I looked, and they're not made up numbers. All the vehicle only purchase prices. We can take you back and show you that paperwork. And then we went off of that expected life, and then what their projected replacement year would be. And then to get my projected replacement cost, I went off of 4% inflation over the cost, or over the course of either 10 years or 30 years. And then when you break that down into an estimated annual budget, so then that's how much money you would essentially have to put away on an
Each
annual
Each year.
basis.
Yep.
And then that would allow you, I mean, it would continue on.
So is
as
that
you
what that 55,000 is? We're putting
what your
a
current
portion? So that wasn't earmarked specifically for,
It
that
was
was just,
for any one of these, pretty much any one of
okay.
these vehicles.
Current budget.
And that becomes a departmental decision. Should we spend the 55 on the pickup this year, or
Yep.
let it go and move it forward?
So the increase that you indicate in your budget for 550 is the 91, is rounded up from the 958737.
Correct.
Yeah.
I guess that's how I got to that
Nope,
number.
that makes complete sense. Thank you.
And then the bottom of that then, there's another 5 line items, and those are just more, and one of them is turnout gear that we replace so many on an annual basis. But this is just kind of a cycle through to kind of show you what that would be. It's the same thing with helmets. You know, SCBA's, when we look at those, Just a replacement cost. Looking at this, I was trying to get, a solid comparison. So the only person I got back that had a steady number was at the very bottom where it's that air compressor. Now trying to talk through what an air compressor is, not like an air compressor that's in your garage. This is an air compressor that fills our high-pressure 4,500 pound or 4,500 PSI bottles that we put on our SCBA's that we take into a fire. They've got to be filtered, it's got to be able to reach that type of a pressure. There's a lot of systems and stuff in there that filter that air to make it the purest air that we can use when we take into a fire. So we bought that in 2007 for $37,275 with an expected lifespan of 20 years to make a replacement at 2027. With that, the projected replacement cost was $81,674, and I got a quote in the middle of July for essentially as close to identical as we could get. And the price that came out to was $94,500. So even off of what my forecast was, it was gonna be more expensive. But now it came to a time with a dilemma on whether or not, when I got my quote, my air compressor was still worth something. Which, when I look at some stuff with the city, sometimes we just keep running things into the ground until there's absolutely no value. We get every penny it's worth out of that thing. Where I can sit and I've got a standing quote right now for $12,000 for this air compressor, because it still has some life on it. So then if I did my quick math, that takes me down to about $82,500. Well, if I forecast at $81,600 and I could have a little trade-in with this, it would offset that account. It's still an expense, but it goes to something that's new, and we'd be able to.
Can they
get-
accept the trade-ins on those types of things?
The only thing is, I don't know if we can do that. Can we do that?
Yeah,
So
that's a great idea. I
it
mean,
was just
that's,
something to think about, that if it still has some value in today's age, and I know there's a lot of departments that actually come to us to fill bottles, but if we can get that to another one of them, and there's a cost there that we can recoup, I think that would be, it's a revenue.
Would you say that it was 12,000, that old air compressor?
That's the potential, I mean, that's the one standing offer I have now, and that's not putting it out on the market and getting competitive with it.
But that's if we trade it in now and get you a new one
Yep.
today, obviously, not wait 5 years from now.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So,
And because of the reserves, we could make that choice. Trade that in.
so,
And those are choices that department has to make.
I guess if we want to jump back, just still on that capital and stuff like that, I know 520's got a little bit of a jump in it.
Page?
Page 32, and we're working towards the bottom now, so 0520.
Building.
The current budget's got 18.1, and there's radios and stuff that are involved in that, but my forecast, when I look at it for next year, no, I take that back, that's the wrong line item, sorry, 0520. It's been 0, and I've got 1930 in there, and that's an outdoor message board on the station, and I would like to replace the shop overhead door that did get nixed last year, and I had somebody come in and look at it, and then I had another private business owner come in and look at it, and said that if by next winter, it's probably gonna be done, it's gonna fall off. So that's kind of a dire need for me at this point in time. When we did have that forecasted in the budget last year, it was for $6,500. When I got my quote back now, it's just under $7,300. So that price has gone up just a little bit, but at the same point in time, that door gets opened and gets utilized at least as much as our primary response apparatus with the fire truck, so.
That's that south door.
Yeah, this would be that south door. And if you look at it, it's got rust and stuff coming through it, and we were going to try to make it look cosmetically pleasing. But then after a couple people came and looked at it and started pushing on it, and they're like, it's rusting through, it's getting to that point.
So I wanna jump up to building repairs and maintenance, you've got 7,500. That's 0222.
Yep,
So. Where's that that's 7,500 going? I guess what I'm after is 7,500 is really not a lot of money, but why can't building repair and maintenance and building instructors all be under one line item? I look at building repairs and maintenance, that's part of taking care of the building. Well, then you've got building and structures, and I say that's taking care of the building. So why can't those two be combined?
gotta do with that, code, it's like 520, and then this is my operating, and then that's a capital, right?
And, Your Honor,
Building repairs.
I don't wanna
is
own
this
that.
the line item that you would like the municipal building?
Right, if it's
something
possible,
fund?
if it,
Municipal lands and buildings.
right, if,
Municipal land and building fund?
yeah, bidding on what
Yeah.
we've got in that.
Yeah.
Now, are you saying,
I just feel that any maintenance on our the city-owned buildings should come out of municipal land and buildings. That's my take. I could correct.
but you're not saying you would put one into the other, you add the two together and put it in another name?
Right. I just look at them both and it's about, repair and maintenance on our buildings. Building and structures or building and repairs, and maintenance.
And that's certain, something we can look at. These are the categories that we've been given.
Kind of see if it can be cleaned up a little bit to make it all under one, and then if the money is available in municipal building and grounds, that's where it should come
Well,
from.
that might be another category somewhere else. Municipal land and buildings is its own fund.
Right, but in the past, I don't know I can't remember what we did last year or the year before, but we've always put money into that in the municipal building and grounds for the upkeep of our buildings.
Well, and that's something we can look at. You're not saying these numbers are wrong, just where do you put them?
Right. I think it's just, it looks like you're stepping on each other's toes here if it's coming out of the same pool.
And just so you all know, we've been doing that. As we've gone line by line, we've attempted to remove some categories altogether to try to make it more consolidated. So that's something we can look at.
My understanding is that I thought you guys were already consolidating the building repairs and the annual maintenance, right?
Yep. Well,
Okay.
building repairs, so with that annual maintenance, like that was getting divvied up between equipment repair and maintenance and building repair and maintenance.
Okay,
Just because of the sort of the annual testing and stuff, either that have to happen at the station or on the equipment itself.
so you're already consolidating a couple of those
Those,
accounts.
and with those, and like I said, first year doing this, when I look at those 500 codes, is there capital codes for larger, like a straightforward large purchase? So if that's a $7,500 purchase, the money in that line item, so that 7,500 that is in that building repairs and maintenance, that's just, that's all the little things that, just the expense to get me through a year on a bunch of small things. Where when you look at the 520, that's a big purchase that I'm looking at doing in one fall swoop. So instead of wiping that off in one purchase, that's why it was down there.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Line by line.
So, I know there are no dumb questions. This is my first budget process. So where does the city capture asset depreciation? I mean, we've got fire trucks that are worth $500,000, and every year, the value of that asset depreciates. So where do we capture that information?
Asset depreciation.
We go around every year and we check our assets. Shoot.
I'm not sure the name of it.
I don't remember the name. We do have, I guess, one thing, like, so this year, I guess, as you're talking, and I don't know if this is the right answer to the right question. We do go around, like at the fire department, we go through all of our grounds and everything, and anything that is listed on that asset list, we do go through that, just to verify that that stuff is all still there, the numbers are correct. With our inventory and stuff, that changes. If we purchase gear, now that turns into an asset because it's over X amount of dollars, $1,000. Maybe it's more than that. 5? So anything over that, so we make sure that all that stuff is there, and I know just looking at that, there are lines where it's asset depreciation and stuff. I never looked too closely at it, I was more concerned with making sure that the report that was handed matched what we had at the station. So, but I wish I could tell you, I don't remember what the program is
We
called.
can get that.
You know,
It's done. I mean, it is done. But I don't know off the top of my head either, what's the program, but it is done.
and one of my other questions really is, you know, we've started this budget process, but we still don't have an audit. So, I mean, we don't know where we sit officially from our last budget cycle, and it just, so what's, yeah, I don't know, that's confusing to me.
Well, and it should be.
Yeah.
And we don't have an official certified audit yet. Our auditors are working on it as best they can, given the circumstances.
Yeah,
Do we have anything from them yet?
No.
And the reason I ask is kind of going off of what Tim was saying, it's like, these are great numbers and stuff, but are these realistic numbers?
Well, this,
Based on the
these
budget
are
from
the
last year?
expenses we're using into the next budget year. It's not based on last year's audit. Now,
So
how much we have carried over from last year, we don't know. How much are we under from last year? We don't know.
Yeah,
And some of these numbers came up, like I said, I went through every account, and since 2001 to 2023, I printed off the history, just to try and get a gauge. And some of them I was able to just work with an average. So there are some numbers that are in here in this line that they actually dropped. So I don't need this much here, so I can reduce that line item. But then there's a way when I go and I look, and all of a sudden I see I've got one account that I've overspent for the last 6 years, and I've overspent it by $1,000 or $2,000. It was never adjusted. So I tried to go, and if there were spots that I could go and kind of trim that, I was trimming that, but then knowing that there was gonna be a potential that I had to use it somewhere else. And that's essentially why some of these numbers have fluctuated. And that's when I dove in, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh cow, I gotta consolidate some of this, just because to me, sitting there with a budget that I was not responsible for, and if I got confused on it, I wanted to make sure that if I understand it, then I can explain it to you guys, and you guys can understand it.
And that's why our budget meetings have, well, we've increased the time for everyone, because we're going line by line. You're right, we don't have an audit, but in a sense, that doesn't matter, because we're trying to project next year based on history.
Can I ask Shane real quick, the office equipment and furnishings, the command for, or award for command post remodel, is that a building that we own?
Nope.
You're into the emergency management side of things?
Oh, yeah, I jumped, sorry.
Okay.
Ward 4, the Eagles owns that building. It used to be an old barber shop.
Yep.
I thought it's in general fund. It's on page 33. So is that a separate?
that's under emergency management.
Page 33, what account number?
It's the 0580.
She's onto the emergency management packet. That's all.
Other equipment.
I guess there's only two for them.
Give me 1 second.
Am I missing something? It says general fund at the top of this one. It doesn't say
I'm
emergency
looking at
management.
It says general
On
fund,
the
but
very
right underneath
left
it says
Emergency
emergency
management.
management.
The general fund, it says
Page-
fire department.
Page 40?
No, page 33.
33. 33.
That to you guys. Page 33.
2035.
It's the first line item.
Actual. Other equipment.
Just gonna double check.
Yep, yep. It says a remodel of the Ward 4 command post, and we don't own that building.
Okay, so that number,
0580.
yep, and that should be in one of my, I'll get back to that with my fire department, so that's a fire department note?
Well, it's,
Yes.
the notes say, training compound improvements, 5,000, fire hose pressure tester, 3,500, fire hose washer, 15,000.
That would be where the 23.5 comes in from.
If you look
So
on
that's that.
page, if you look on page 39,
Yeah, 39.
right, sorry, hold on. No, that's page 41. It's showing, wait,
It's
it's
on
the wrong
39
number.
also.
Other equipment and furnishings, so maybe that is separate. Maybe I pulled that differently. Okay,
Page 39, so
That
what
is-
she caught.
hold
It
on,
said- it
Shane.
said 0580.
The description, I was reading from a different one, so I think I was reading that one from the fire one. So it's 0570 is what I was asking about. So that was on the emergency management. That doesn't make sense, it's not, oh, there it is. Yeah,
That,
it's 8,000, right?
So that one, yes, okay, so I'm gonna just put that down, we get back into my.
We can
emails.
come back to that one when we get to it.
No, we can, no, we
So
can.
Chris, you're talking about, so on page 30, let me
33.
get here. 33, you're talking about the budget of 23,500?
No,
No, she took the
I
note.
was looking at the other description for emergency.
39.
emergency
But there's
management.
$8,000 that's budgeted for the Ward 4 command post remodel. And I was just curious, is not a building that we own.
No,
I don't see
the
that.
command
Where's
post.
that?
It's on emergency management, page 41. Well,
We get to
41.
page 41.
page 40, and then page 41 is the description.
But he's also got notes in there that he's possibly looking at a different place to have the Ward for.
That's correct.
Oh, I see.
So this, so the way that works, Christie, so with that,
Okay.
that funding, we've had quotes now. That building fell out of repair. I mean, it's been bad for a couple of years.
Yeah,
And so then we went with a temporary knee-jerk, had to find someplace.
sure.
So that ends up at Trinity Church. Talking with Trinity Church, we're not gonna be able to ever adapt the room that they give us to be able to have that function as a command post for the ward.
Sure.
Second check mark for me is it's in the floodplain. Unless we do sandbagging, but it's still, the entrance to that church is still a half foot below what our levee is at right now.
Right,
I don't wanna have a command post in the floodplain.
sure.
So essentially what I've done is we went and we got quotes to, what can we do to at least make old Ward 4's command post that anybody that's been around, there's still some meaning to that room, that building. So let's just see what it would cost to maybe get that thing so it's somewhat presentable, especially the people in the Woods Edition, that they utilized all the time. So that's a number that I've gotten from a quote, and that goes a little bit more extensive into flooring and stuff. One thing it doesn't have is maybe the electrical work and some of the plumbing. So that's just an initial, but I wanted to get that number in front of you. I am also exploring options of other buildings within Ward 4 that would be in an appropriate location to be able to relocate our Ward 4 command post. Because that little room in Trinity, we thank them for allowing us to use that, but knowing that we're not gonna be able to get a dedicated phone line in there. The past experience we've had these last couple of years, it's just not built to suit what we need for a command post.
Right.
So I'm looking at other options. This right away, like I said, was one of the first ones I wanted to explore the option just to see. I'm kind of a history guy and I hate losing the past. So I wanted to at least explore that option to be able to see if we
That's the
could,
old barber shop, right?
yeah, see if we
Well,
could
see,
bring
yeah,
that
2
back.
years ago, I
That
was
was
here,
bad.
and they couldn't even use the toilet over there.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
need
they-
one.
At the one, at the
Yeah.
current, the one that we were at.
At the old one 2 years ago,
The barber shop.
the barber
Yes, the
shop.
one that we used 2 years ago, the one we're
Okay.
talking about.
Okay, okay,
That's
Great.
in bad shape.
And again, this is a want list,
Is it 5,000 you're looking at, or what?
8.
Eight, and there's other opportunities possibly though.
And there's other opportunities that I'm trying to explore at this point in time that
Yeah.
would offset.
Okay,
But I did want, like I said, you gotta know what I'm thinking, and I want you to know kind of my vision when it comes to emergency management and how I wanna be prepared. You break down the wards, I mean, you can look at that, and you look at the Woods Edition, it's surrounded by the river.
yeah, I guess
I
my,
wanna make sure that's got a really nice, not maybe top of the line, but I want it to have a very good functioning command post because of its location.
yeah, and I don't have a problem with that, Shane. I just think if we're spending city money on a building that isn't city-owned, that I'd like to see like some type of like long-term agreement or something that, we don't set this up and then they don't let us utilize it the next year, right? I mean, I just wanna make sure that
I mean,
we're,
is it, I liked last year when we combined command post. I mean, do we need to have 6 command posts, or is there expenses that we have for having 6 command posts instead of cutting them down to 4 command posts? Because like Ward 6, we went over to during the flood
Ward
event.
5.
Ward 5, and we shared that, and really, I mean, other than, can't predict what's gonna happen, but
it's just not flooding. It could be a tornado that
but
comes
still,
around
I
the
mean,
north, comes through the Woods Edition or Jerome's Edition, and then we need to utilize Ward 6 command post.
right?
I hear where you're coming from.
I
See if we
mean,
can-
I think just because the time, I wanna be conscious of the time. I think it's a good idea. I would just say if we're gonna spend any kind of money on a building that isn't ours, I'd like to just see some type of long-term agreement.
There would
that
be,
says
if
that-
we're gonna put $8,000, if that happens when I'm here, we're gonna have a permanent agreement that
Okay.
says we can do that.
That's my only concern. Okay,
And I know, I just wanna make sure if there's any questions. Yeah.
I just have a question, you know, we have the new fire station or up in the north end by Walmart there. Is that owned by us?
Associations.
That's the volunteer firefighters.
Oh, okay.
But the volunteer firefighters own it, right?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, but,
Association.
they either own it or they're making payments on it, but it is not the city's.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't see anything in the budget related to that, so.
Nope.
And they also own fire trucks that we do not own. Or they're making payments on them.
so the volunteer fire department owns the fire trucks.
Association.
The Association, volunteer, paid on call, volunteer firefighters association owns the North Station and trucks.
I didn't know that.
So now you may appreciate that, that's why we don't have an agreement right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So any other questions on this? I mean,
There are notes, like I said, I did try to get as descriptive as
I
I could for
appreciate
you
that,
guys to
Shane.
be able to
Thank
take
you.
your time to look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good start.
like I say, this is just a want list,
Yep.
wish list. Come back to it,
Yeah.
Good job.
get the final
So-
numbers. I guess too, Shane, maybe you should go back, maybe it's, maybe not a good idea or a good idea as far as your wish list. You know, what you really think you need, your top 3 or 4 or 5. And, I mean, I know you want it all, but
And just so you understand, we've already had that conversation coming with you with what fire department wants, knowing in all actuality probably won't happen. So we've already started that process.
what you think is
so-
most important for your department.
So the total budget for the fire department is $1,020,000? Is that,
That number,
And-
yeah, a
and
little bit.
year-to-date so far, we're at just under $500,000 right now, so that's 7 months, right?
Yep. End of July, yeah.
And actual, so you're a little over 200,000 more than actual 2022 is what you're requesting then, basically.
And that takes into account that adjustment on that motor vehicles, some salaries and stuff like that.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Good to go?
Yep. Yep.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Shane.
I know you put a lot of time into this.
Good job, Shane.
So Corky, when will we know, I know this is probably way later in the process, I can't remember, how much, like we talked earlier about each percent, the levy dollar, when are we gonna know that? Is that like November?
We are meeting with Sam Melby on the 23rd of August, Audrey and I. We hope to have that number then.
Okay. So then we can say, okay, based on $1,020,000, this is X amount of levy.
This will be 10%, 11%, 12%. We will also be asking him, what is our break-even point?
That's perfect, because we need that, because that really helped us last year by,
Yes, where we could say, had we had a 10% levy increase, there'd have been no tax increase.
right,
We will be hopefully getting that
that,
from
I think that helps a lot of us council members get over the hump of,
Well, it's just confusing in general. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest, even Gary Wilhoit stood up here and said that it's confusing, as the county commissioner. What I'd like to see, if possible, is Sam Melby come in and help explain some of those questions, because I think ultimately, at the end of the day, that would have been also helpful from a constituent standpoint.
He was scheduled to come,
I know,
and he didn't.
yes. So we could maybe change that this year.
Well, it'll be 2 against 1 when we go there. But we have 8 issues to raise with him when we go see him.
Okay.
Not only this, but like the house at 103 North Nelson, if that forfeits for taxes, how do we work together to get that house down and gone? So we have a number of issues that we're gonna talk to him about. 23rd next Wednesday. Huh? I'm not sure where he went. Oh. Thought he was leaving it up to you two.
So Corky, I have a question. So Cammie, she's a city employee, correct?
Correct.
So I know she's been doing a lot of the grants for the EDA. Can
Correct.
she also look and write grants for the fire department? On that, I mean, I know that there's a lot out there.
That's, yes, she's a city employee.
She does,
She does write grants or can for other city departments. Yes.
yeah, she's done some for the Park and Rec, right?
So if department heads find them, she can write them.
Correct.
Yeah, she's a city employee.
Yeah, I think so.
So we fund them. Okay. And how much has that been a year roughly? So how come we don't have a representative on that? I mean, we have,
Private, it's a private entity.
well, if, I mean,
Shane goes to many of the meetings, he's part of it, but when it comes to
I mean, so why is that different than other areas we give, we fund? We have a council member.
we have a contract with them.
Oh.
A business relationship.
Okay.
Text me saying they weren't able to see it.
It's being recorded, it's not being streamed.
Ah, okay. Is it normally streamed?
Not no.
Ways and Means? But it'll be put on the Facebook?
That I don't know, I don't know. I can find out, sure enough.
I think all budgeting meetings should be posted.
Okay, we ready? Sorry, looking through this a little bit again. Who's starting us out? I guess Jake or Corky or we're on
No,
the
again, this is
Park and Rec?
Park and Rec, it's their want list, with notes, as you can all see again, where there've been, might have been questions in the past or anticipated questions, this year. Jake Solberg has made notes, comments, but he's gonna take us through again, as you've seen, revenues, and then questions, and then expenses, as always, questions. Have at it, Jake.
Well, we're starting off with the revenue line item, I guess, recreational fees. Last year we brought in 34,000. We anticipated a little bit more, not, and you know, with the pool being closed the way it was and stuff too, I think, we probably would have hit that, but, we're open now. We hired a new pool supervisor, rec. You know, I'm excited for her, and I'm excited to see what she can bring to our community with the ideas that she's said she wants to do and things like that. So, not everything, obviously, the year-to-day actual has been processed yet. We will be starting our fall programming and winter programming, which you guys all know is, our winter programming is a little bit more, it's a little bit bigger than some certain other summer activities, so, cost-wise anyway, so.
And just so we anticipate, did we raise fees last year?
We did, yep, so
So we raised-
2022,
We raised fees last year, but because of we didn't have somebody around, we stayed basically, we're trending to be less than budget, right?
yes, typically because of the pool. You know, pool generates some revenue, with activities and swim lessons and private lessons and things like that, so.
So if we're past the halfway mark and we only have 10,000, does that mean we have like 20,000 still coming in?
I would anticipate so with our fall and winter activities coming. Hockey, figure skating, volleyball, things like that.
So in the next 5 months, we're expecting that
So
larger
recreation,
30,000 revenue?
We're anticipating it, yes.
And it's a timing thing, as you know. We get a bulk of our money from recreation in the fall and winter registrations.
okay.
And then for Club Kid, have we just not processed a lot of that?
Correct. That's a finance, I don't,
There are, deposits that have not been posted.
and you can see I went $5,000 more this coming year. You know, my notes for the simple fact of, the decrease in childcare that we have in this community. I went back to 2021, we had 54 participants, at $200. 2022, we had 62 participants at 250, I believe, and then we upped it this year. And we had to 300, and we have 69 participants. So our numbers have increased since I've been in this position.
So campground fees, you must be anticipating a big jump
Yep.
after the campground gets up and running?
So what I did with the campground is I went through and worked on a budget for expense and revenue. And the expense came in around, and that's actually Corky and I sat down and talked about this. At 40% was 6 sites,
We have
or 17
17
sites, I'm sorry. 40% is roughly 6 sites occupied. It was a little over 30,000, but I put it at 30. I know it was just a little over, but we rounded it down to
We
30,000.
took 6 sites,
Yep,
that's 40% times $40 per night,
40, yep.
occupied for 140,
5 nights, I believe it
45
was.
nights.
So that'll be fully functional next fiscal year.
That has to be ready, it has to
Yes.
be done by June 30th of '24,
Because of the grant?
because of the grant, yes.
Okay.
That's how we came to that number. Tried to be conservative.
It seems a little ambitious, seeing what our historical numbers have been for the first year it's open. Do we plan on doing some, like, major advertising, or?
So yeah, again,
Yes.
we're talking marketing here, and So is there, because getting the message out that we have this new complex would be,
It's a combination. You'll be seeing later a budget from EDA. There is marketing money requested in there, and that would be a marketer for the city, which would include this.
Christie, could, as far as marketing the campground, can CVB do some of that? Because they're gonna recoup a lodging tax down there too.
They should.
They are. So I'm just
I know,
wondering,
absolutely.
so if
I
they
agree with
could-
you.
but that's,
I want to check on that. I'm not sure you can do the lodging tax on a campground, but I will check.
Because I was hearing in the past, it was a given that city could do a lodging tax.
Well, we'll check. We'll
Okay.
check to make sure.
Thank you.
But even if they can't, CVB, Convention and Tourism, would help.
It still is within their realm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Under line item 4740 concessions for the arena, there's like a big zero. So it
So you-
seems to me, well, and then your notes is something about the Blue Line Club. I don't know what that is, but they'll be paying
Hockey.
for hockey tournaments for our youth. So we concede concessions 100% to this club in lieu of the sponsoring of tournaments?
Paying for all our tournament registration fees.
Yeah.
So is that like, I mean, is that apples to apples, or do they make enough money in concessions so that there's no expense for them, or do they?
They make a ton of money in the concessions. They don't pay anybody to work the concession stand, and they have full control of it. Like, they make plenty of money,
Yeah.
So are we losing money with
Yeah.
this operation?
I would imagine.
Well, why do we have it set up this way?
They,
They're private.
It's a sacred cow?
Yeah, one
They're a
is-
pretty popular, organization
Yeah,
with
the
youth
parents
hockey
run it.
yeah.
in
I
the
know,
They,
city.
but
they monopolize
the
it.
problem that I've always, and I don't care, the arrangement that they have is fine, but the problem that I have is when there's other things that happen within, and they don't want to open, then there's no concessions, and nobody can use that room for concessions, and that's the problem that I have.
And I have brought that same concern up, and there's been a lot of people who've brought up that same concern, and I think we really need to revisit
Because
that.
we need to get that figured out, because if we have, like, I can't remember what it was I was at, but the concession stand wasn't open, and it was a big event in there. I think it was maybe it was the craft show or
I
something
think
that
that's
we
one of the
had.
reasons I heard that the craft show,
so,
among many, but.
So
We have negotiated a different contract.
this
When's that contract up?
March 31st of '25. So what we did with, you're talking about the months of that they run the concession stand and no one can come in.
Well,
there.
any event that we, as a city,
Yeah,
want
I'm
to,
gonna explain what.
Okay, go
what
ahead.
we talked about. So the September through May, the months of September through May, the Blue Line Club agrees to cooperate with the sponsors of events held in the CSC, but the BLC is not required to enter into an agreement with such sponsors regarding operation of its concession area or the sharing of revenues from its concession area. It says, however, the Blue Line Club agrees to use its best efforts to partner with sponsors and reach an agreement to benefit both parties. If no agreement is reached between the Blue Line Club and such sponsors, or if the Blue Line Club's concession is not open during the event, then the city may authorize the sponsors of such event to sell concessions elsewhere in the CSC.
outside the concession.
Yeah, the
Elsewhere.
concern and question that has been brought to my attention is that they're able to store all of their stuff there, they're able to leave all their stuff, but nobody can utilize their stuff, but then people can't bring their stuff in to utilize. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay?
So we need to take a hard look at that agreement, because I have had that concern from a lot of constituents for a long time.
Well, I don't think we should have sacred cows. you know?
Well, you may not have one. You may not in
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah.
They've had significant difficulty getting people to run the concession stand.
So it's all
It's
volunteer?
lended itself to the decline in registration for hockey because the
Parents
amount that they have to work at the concession stand per kid is just so ridiculous that people just won't sign their kids up for hockey now.
That does not sound like a sustainable model.
It's not.
No.
It hasn't been for a while.
And then if you didn't wanna work the concessions at all, you could pay a fee. So I think more people are saying, screw it, I'll pay the
Well, isn't
fee.
hockey, I'm a little ignorant about the sport, but I understand that it's very expensive. So, just to, provide skates and lessons and all of that. So these are additional costs for families to be members
Yes.
of this club?
Yes.
Yep.
So they pay our fee, which it varies on what level you're at. And then you pay a Blue Line Club fee. I think it's $80 or $85. And then you have to work so many hours, so many shifts in the concession stand.
And then if you
As a
don't
Blue
work
Line
those
Club member.
shifts, you have to pay a fee on top of that to get yourself out of working those shifts.
Right, and then the
There's no USA hockey fee? I thought there's USA hockey fee too.
Oh yeah, there's USA
Yeah.
hockey fees. Yep.
So the revenue, basically, when I was involved out there years ago, the revenue that Blue Line brought in, it went for their
Yeah.
fall and spring ice, but they also supplied, game jerseys
September.
for the teams. They'd buy goalie equipment,
Not
Don't
this
they also
September.
pay some of like the ice time or for like beginners and like some of the registration
learn
fees
to
for kids?
skate maybe, or mites
learn
was
to
free,
skate.
mite
Yeah.
hockey was
So the Blue Line
free.
Club pays for the participants in mini mite hockey
Right,
and learn to skate.
right.
But parents still have to sell $100 in raffle tickets, so it's not like it's
Exactly.
not.
Well, that's a
I'm
Blue
just
Line-
letting you
that's
know
a Blue
what
Line
they
club.
do.
I know, but I'm just saying when we talk
Has
about it
nothing to do with
being,
city.
like, there's no cost, there is
I-
a cost.
Listen, the only thing that I care about is if we have a city function there, the concession stand should be open. So however that happens, I don't think it should be we'll try as hard as we can. I think it should be put in there to say, this is what it is. Because I think it's a crying shame when we have an event out there and the concession stand is closed.
I do want to tell you that everything in that concession stand, they own.
I get it.
But that doesn't make it right.
Well, it's also
I'm
not
just-
a ton of stuff.
But
No, it's not
Have you
like
been
a
in there?
super.
But
What $100,000 item do they have in there?
I couldn't tell you.
Because they don't have one.
Okay.
But
They
at
have a
what-
popcorn machine. They got some stuff they got a microwave.
got
They
a-
don't have stuff that's that crazy.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's probably.
My bigger concern is that, let's also remember that this is a city-owned, constituent,
you.
utilized
Yeah.
space, and that it should be open and available to everybody. And when
So
we
that-
have one particular group that is, completely has access only September through May, that's the concern.
Well, I think either, if we're gonna have an event, either they need to get in there and run it and have it open for every single city event, or else they need to open it up to the city so we can run concessions out of there.
But
in
the
that
deal
space.
is if we run it as a city, that we'd be in the same boat they would. Who are we gonna get to volunteer their time to work the concession?
Because, to that point, if you look at concerts that happen in Grand Forks, they're paying their city employees triple time.
Or that they're paying volunteers, like the Ralph Engelstad Arena. They pay people to go in there and then
Then they're
that's
not
part of the project.
volunteers, then they're employees.
Right, they're all, they're paid.
So
well, do you have to belong to the Blue Line Club to be a skater?
No.
No.
So you can be on a hockey team?
No, if
You
you're
still
a,
have
if you're
to
a hockey
pay.
member,
No,
you
you
have to
gotta
be.
be.
You
a
still have to
local.
pay.
If
Yes.
you're gonna play hockey,
You
you
pay
have to
the
be in the
fees.
Blue Line Club. If you're gonna be a figure skater, you have to be in the figure skater.
There's association for figure
Association.
skaters.
But open skate, open hockey, anybody can
You could do a
participate.
pickup game if.
One of the issues, and you're all aware of it, is we just don't have as many people in the community, in the, either playing hockey or just available to play hockey.
That brings a couple of questions. So I've had some conversations with Carrie about marketing and then getting some more, this whole Crookston Sports Arena was sold as a community center. And that's how we got it. And so we drive by there all summer long and nothing's happening out there. That's a shame. It's like, so.
It's a travesty.
It's a travesty. So there's two things I'd like to see happen going forward is we need to get a marketing person, and we need to figure out a way to get that thing filled more weekends in the summertime.
You're gonna see a proposal coming forward from the EDA for marketing. That is a
Okay.
component.
The other thing is if any of you have been in there during a summer event, it is extremely, extremely hot.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go. So I think we need to get in on our capital improvement plan, a 5-year, to look into seeing what we can do to get some type of an air conditioning system put in that thing so we can have events in there in the summer without
It being a hot box.
rate.
Hellhole.
Yeah, because people go in there for the event, then they go stand outside because they can't.
Yeah.
Well, and to that point, I don't think a lot of families know that you can rent out that back room for, what is it, like $30
Dollars an hour.
an
Well,
hour?
I think initially when it got, there was a few weddings in there, but I think after the fact, they said, man, it was incredibly hot in
Well,
there.
I think that's the other question. It's not just about marketing, it's about somebody who's gonna run that and like actually be that event
So,
coordinator,
and that-
event
and that-
planner.
That's a great thing, because I think we need either a facility person, because, I know these aren't supposed to make money, but I mean, I'd sure like to see them try to break as close to even as possible. I mean, you could look at the Fargo Dome and the Alaris Center and put this on a much smaller scale, but we still could be having summer events in there, I think, and have more community events in there, and,
I mean, to your point, we need a community center at some point. Like, why can't we somehow make that?
yeah.
Part of it,
Facility.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm really pushing still for some type of indoor playground. I mean, for a place like this that has winter for 9 months out of the year, it just blows me away that isn't part of our reality already. And if we're also talking about trying to encourage young families to come to this area, but then we don't have indoor places for them to do outside of hockey and honestly a very expensive sport that, we have a lower economic status population in Crookston. Like, why aren't we providing those type of spaces there? I think these are conversations, and when we talk about utilizing the CSC, that it shouldn't just be a conversation about hockey. It should be a conversation about events. It should be a conversation about how else we utilize it. I mean, I had my son's birthday party there on the turf. We had some blow-up bounce houses, and it was a blast. And if you're already paying somebody to be there anyways, why are we not capitalizing and trying to recapture some of that money as far as the revenue is concerned? There's a lot of spaces in there that I think we could also be utilizing for other activities that would serve a larger population of our city that need to be considered.
Well, I got stomped on in the past, and I'll probably get stomped on again. But because our numbers are down in hockey and in figure skating, so I hear, why can't we, and it would cut cost if we left turf in the gold year-round.
I'm assuming there's an agreement that's been signed, Corky, that says they get all 3 sheets,
For who?
Blue Line Club.
Nope, that's for the U of M.
So the U of M has an agreement that we have 3 sheets of ice at all times.
No, not
No.
3 sheets of ice. They can utilize the facility. And when we have 3 sheets of ice in, they can use any sheet that we schedule them to.
But I don't know,
And they can use this, I mean, for when we have it in the spring, so typically we take out the gold rink and we put the turf in the gold rink in about February, right after our district tournaments. So then it gets utilized for, spring
For baseball,
activities,
soccer.
baseball, soccer, softball, things like that.
But I just can't figure it out, because I mean, when I was in youth hockey, and these families then had 10 kids, and there were traveling teams, house leagues. We had one rink, we had 2 high school teams and a college team playing on one sheet.
How often are all 3 rinks being used at the same time?
Depending on the weekend, but typically during the week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, we are usually all 3 sheets.
So,
For how many months?
For how many months, once hockey and figure skating start?
So what is that?
so once,
October to March. Yeah,
But
end
I
of
think
February.
they're on a weekend, depending on where these teams are at too, I think there's a lot of idle ice out there.
Yep, I would agree.
well, I'll tell you one thing, I think a lot of our tournaments, correct me if I'm wrong, we try hard to get them done on a Friday and Saturday. So, am I,
Typically, you try to do a Friday evening and then Saturday and then Sunday championship.
okay? Because I see
Or
some
it's just
tournaments that
Saturday,
just,
Sunday.
are just, but all the tournaments that we do are definitely going through Sunday?
All the tournaments that I've done so far, it's been a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, because if we're not stretching them all the way through the weekend, that impacts economic development and, you know, not getting the people from the tournaments to stay in town all
Right.
weekend.
Right. Depending on how many teams you have too. You know,
Yep.
if you try to run a
Okay,
tournament.
let's
Yeah.
move on to the budget.
Well, the gist of the thing
Yeah.
is we need to figure out a way to get more activity in the Crookston Sports Arena.
But then, to that point though, if a budget, if we're talking that, like, is it crazy to ask to look into what would it be to have some sort of indoor playground?
I can definitely look into it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it might get no, but at least. If
Well,
it's-
even if it could be a 5-year capital improvement plan,
Right.
but I will tell you, I know there's 3 here for sure that are all parents, and the middle of winter gets real, real interesting sometimes.
Well, we
And-
can and will look into, 1, where would we locate it? 2, what size, I mean, there's different sized playgrounds, I mean, what are you really looking at? But I think we could look, let's just take a number, if you get any playground, you're talking 40 to 50,000, just
Yeah,
basic.
if not
And
more.
maybe then look at 150,000, what can you get?
Well, and I also think that there's a lot of funding out there for this type of thing. I'd also like us, when we're looking at this, to really look at universal design. And so this is utilized or can be utilized by all children. So I think that's an important piece. If we're gonna do it, let's do it right. But I think that also could be a huge win economically for us, because I know that I would drive to East Grand Forks all the time, or Grand Forks, to take my kids to let them let off some steam.
Oh yeah, by January, I don't care what the price is, if there was a place I could take my kid for 2 hours on a Saturday.
Swear to God.
Did you hear that, Jake? when
But
the
think
pricing-
about this, like, if there's other little surrounding towns that are coming here and they're
Yeah.
getting gas and they're getting groceries and they're getting food, like, we do that all the time in Grand Forks,
Used to drive to McDonald's just
Jake.
for that.
right? And they don't even have that anymore.
What's that, room on the west side being used for,
Wasn't that
between
like
the
some,
event and the gold, all the glass
Yeah.
front? What's
That's
that?
the
wasn't there like
community-
a golf
community room.
simulator in there at one point and some like workout
Not
equipment?
since I've been here.
What's
there
in
was
there
one.
now?
When they first built it, there was a golf
Okay.
simulator there.
Now,
And
golf simulator was in the community room when Pitt moved it up there to try to,
Generate revenue.
to show that we had it. The golf simulator is not in there, the community room now is just, is for rentals and meetings and stuff like that.
Did you get a lot of rentals and meetings?
I don't
No,
know.
because typically what everyone does is, instead of renting out a $30 room and a $30 turf, they can just ask for chairs and tables downstairs in the turf. We put out chairs and tables for them, and everything is down there for them. All the chairs, they can have their food, they can have a
Yeah,
plug-in.
it doesn't make sense to have
It
that.
doesn't
So
make sense to
that-
go upstairs to have cake and
But
food.
that committee room isn't that big.
Yeah, it's pretty good size.
I
I
mean,
don't think for like a playground.
Not a
that's what happened to
playground.
the simulator.
What,
What
Where
happened
is
to the
the
simulator?
simulator?
The simulator is downstairs put away because it was, we used some.
repair work, I believe.
Wasn't there
And
some
kids
workout
are-
equipment too, Scott?
That's
in
moved.
another room.
That's,
That's how, all the weight equipment is downstairs on the south end.
behind the players' benches. There's
There's
two rooms back there, so there's a weight room.
Is that getting utilized
Yeah, there's high
by,
schoolers that come in there. I know like the high
It's
school,
a double-edged sword. What you're running into is the high school wants them to use their weight room, but the hockey teams want to use the weight room at the arena. So we're having,
Didn't they used to have hardwood
Conflict.
floor too, like, that you could put out? Like
We
for a
have- we have-
basketball court?
yeah, it's yep, it's,
I got a floor.
yep. We do that every spring and then fall. We'll have to do it here soon because they'll do hoops on Halloween. Yep,
but it's not hardwood, it's
It's a-
a sport court.
Yeah.
sport court, yeah.
I mean, could that be a park and rec activity that we could have, a golf simulator in the wintertime and have leagues and different things like that? I know,
For sure,
Oh, heck, yeah.
I mean, that's a revenue source right there.
yep.
You get any revenues?
Where we ran into where trouble was the alcohol policy in the past.
for adults? I'm not assuming,
By
Not for the kids.
by not having one?
We couldn't have,
Well, in the past, we couldn't have alcohol, so we lost a lot of our golf simulator rental in the past.
Well, is that open for discussion on this
Like
council? if we-
Albatross or
If we do
whatever?
something like that?
wasn't it called Albatross? The golf simulator. Albatross.
No, that's in Grand Forks.
Okay.
Yeah,
Forks.
But we've lost
but they
a
had
lot of people
alcohol
to that
and you could
because of
do a
that
golf
we
simulation.
had alcohol.
So can we consider that moving forward and try that again? And
Well, the deal is that to get, one of the local bars come in there and serves, they probably don't wanna.
probably what?
Well, you gotta have
Gotta have a
week,
vendor.
a vendor,
Well,
and
can't
some of
they take
these
turns
vets,
like they each, I mean, I'm assuming this, if we had it, I'm just thinking out loud, it's gonna go for the winter. You know, people get leagues and then maybe they can take turns each weekend, different establishment.
Stuff going on.
I think there's a lot here. I
Part of the
think
problem
being
with
just
that-
conscious of the time.
Part of that
Yeah, let's get
is
done.
also difficult because
The nice
we have
time.
heard now this summer, for some of our events with alcohol, they can't get staff.
Okay,
Now, whether that would hold true in the winter, I can't tell you. But to your basic question, is it open to discussion? That's up to you.
when they
Yeah.
I
had,
mean,
when they had curling, I think towards the end, they had trouble getting vendors out there to serve beer. The vendors didn't wanna do it. Or
They just weren't making the money on it or what?
Right,
Well, the vendors were running into the same problem that we just talked about. They didn't have people to work it.
okay, let's get back to the
Okay,
budget
Can I
here.
just clarify, so we have $0 too for concessions for Highlands? What's the deal with that?
we don't have a Highland concession stand.
Oh, no, it was just an old,
Yes, it's an old line item.
all
Yep.
right.
You make anything on hockey from the UMC?
Yes. So they pay
You got a
us.
contract
I
with you?
have a,
I gotta look at the contract here.
do you have a revenue line for that?
Yes, we do. It's,
Someplace there.
it'd be for, let me look here.
What page are
It's
you on?
Rent Arena, isn't it? No. It would be for,
Rent Arena,
but that'd be a miscellaneous.
yeah.
The miscellaneous, so that would be, 35186, 6226 would be where that revenue line item is. I gotta find the UMC contract here.
yeah, we have a contract with them for ice rental.
Yep.
Ice rental?
But that's not just that, isn't it? Anybody who's renting that arena?
Yes, but that's where the line item goes into.
Okay. So all rentals for the arena?
We have one with the school.
Yep.
And one with UMC.
And one with Blue Line,
For what?
and one with Blue Line.
If they take it, now they've indicated they don't want to rent the ice this year. In the past, we've had a rental agreement with the Blue Line Club to rent ice in September.
They will not be doing that
They will
this
not be doing
September.
that this year.
So, explain this to me. So, they get all the concession money. What are we getting from the Blue Line for them utilizing the CSC?
What are we getting from them?
Yes.
Nothing.
Well, the way it should work is it should be if we, the city needs, help getting jerseys or help getting pucks or something like that, they're there for support and giving money for the program, for the kids.
So there's no set dollar amount, we just, if we need some jerseys, they're gonna help out?
That's the plan.
And then they pay for the tournaments.
And they pay for the away tournaments. And that's roughly, depending on tournaments, costs, it's roughly an average of $1,300 per tournament. And it all depends how many teams we have every year, because we necessarily don't have 8 different levels every year. It fluctuates. Does that make sense? So we might have,
Parents aren't paying away for these tournaments at all? Like,
Who?
the parents aren't having to pay for
they're not paying tournament fees. Nope, they pay for a hotel, but they don't pay for a tournament fee. So, back to your question. So the UMC has a contract with us that goes through June 30th of 27. And this is not UMC. This is the public schools. Where did my
UMC's contract goes to 27?
Nope, that was the wrong contract, sorry. So this contract was made, August 1st of 20 through July 31st of 21. And then it says it's for in each consecutive 12-month period thereafter. So they pay us $50,000, and then the increase is 2% every year.
And they just renew yearly, is that what you're saying?
Yep, it's 12-month consecutive.
And how much percent you said?
2%.
50,000?
Okay.
Plus 2%.
So 50,000 starting in 2021. 2022 is 2%, and now this year will be 2.
Yeah.
So why is that not reflected in the rental arena?
The rent arena, yeah, this would be the 4, or the 2.
6226, right?
The arena should be in the 225-35186-6226.
Yeah,
And there's 0.
What page is that?
No, it's rent arena,
What page is that on?
it's page 2.
page 14.
Page 14?
This is revenue.
Yes, there's a revenue for the arena as well.
It says zero.
When it says,
It says 0.
14.
And on the
Okay.
revenue under park and rec non-departmental, it says, like,
so if you go to page 14,
Yeah.
so we have 2 separate,
Ice rental?
yes.
Ice rental?
So the expense account for the arena is 45186. The revenue account for the arena is 35186.
There it is, it's 6226, rent arena,
Yes.
$191,000.
so this miscellaneous revenue, that's 6226, where we have like 3,200 for 21 and 9,000 for 22 and 300 currently, what is that?
195, 22.
Or 3,000.
On page 2.
Yep, I see that.
Lots of money.
Departmental. I'd have to look into that and see what went in there. I don't have an answer for you right now tonight. It could be.
Saying that's
So
turf
why is there
rent.
such a difference in
Well,
revenue?
one is kind of a miscellaneous general park and rec.
No, I'm asking how the revenues fluctuated greatly. It was at
Oh, from-
3,300 to 9,000 to 300.
Yeah.
Because we reallocated some of that money in that fund to the arena rental fund.
So we recategorize.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
I was looking at page 2. Under miscellaneous revenues. So we have two
One's
accounts
on-
that are revenue,
One's
that
on
don't have the
page
name.
2, one's on page 14.
Why would you have the same name for?
Gotcha.
The attempt was to get all of the rent from the arena in one category, not to parse it out like this. And one of the things that we have now is that we used to rent the arena to the Blue Line Club for the month of September. They've chosen not to do that, and that was
So we didn't-
significant
So we didn't have a contract with them, but we have a contract with them for the concession
for the
stand.
renting.
We have a contract with them for the renting of,
But they can just say no.
we give them a 7-day grace period.
That's
Not saying it's ideal,
it's a bad contract.
I don't see any revenue here for any types of sponsorships. Do businesses around here not do any sponsorships?
There is on
I
14.
didn't, conferences,
Sponsorships.
We're supposed to get revenue from the advertisement
you
out
see
there.
the advertisements
Yeah.
around it, yes.
So is there a line item for that?
Yeah, it's-
Advertising income.
Income.
Yeah, it's
On what page?
Right there,
14,
right above where you were
6224.
talking about,
Page 14.
right above the 191, 782, 15,000.
14,
So does that come all in at one time then as well?
15,000.
Not necessarily, it kind of depends on when they pay, but per year, they have to pay per year.
So how did we go from 49,000 to 1,000?
Because they paid for 3 years last
Oh.
year. They paid for 20, 21, and 22.
Okay, and so is that staggered out then for sponsorship?
Can be, some pay, I tell you, at the law firm, we paid for 3 years, came in all at 1 year. Some firms pay once every
So
year for 3 years.
We accrue that all at once and don't accrue it year by year in our accounting.
When we get it
Okay.
in, we
Okay.
take it in, we count it.
Okay.
And that's the same way with the baseball field. For the signs on the baseball field. Some you purchase once and only, that's on the scoreboard. The ones that are on the fence are year by year. Because the people who paid for signs on the scoreboard helped pay for the scoreboard.
Right.
And who owns the scoreboard?
The city of Crookston purchased,
I think
Purchased
that's
by
a
the
valid question.
baseball.
It's a valid question, Tim.
purchased by the baseball association, donated to the city, just like the stadium seated.
What a
Purchased
country.
by the baseball. We love donating.
At least someone does.
No, there was a question at one time, but the baseball association donated it to the city.
Isn't that the same thing with the basketball court used at the sports arena? Doesn't the CYPA buy that and then?
My understanding of that court was bought through the legacy grant, the legacy fund in these communities, the Crookston Sports Center.
Okay.
And that was bought, that was bought right away when the building opened.
No, the basketball court, the original floor, the black floor was bought a year, within the first year we opened.
the
The basketball
building.
court was bought about 6 years ago.
Okay.
The CYB donated to the legacy fund.
Okay.
And some other people donated, and then it was donated to, one of the things from an insurance standpoint, if you buy something and wanna put it in the city building or anything, it automatically has to be given to the city from an insurance standpoint.
Okay, so as a senior citizen, I find the senior citizen program budget interesting. What's this, 225451870 contractual? But we're on page 19, looking at contractual expenses for,
Is that the senior center?
It's at the senior center. So that is what they came in with last year.
Oh,
You
yeah.
guys all remember. It was originally, when I first started this position, it was at 78,000. Last year, they wanted that, upped.
Because they had to
And
pay
that's-
for snow removal.
Yep,
We were doing
and
it
garbage and stuff like that. Yep.
And that's I mean, it comes under Park and Rec, but actually there will be going out from Audrey's office a letter to like the Senior
board.
Citizen Center, Scruffy Tail saying, if you wish,
DCDP.
sure, I call it AC/DC, but yes. They will get a letter saying, come on in and make your case for why the city should
So, yeah, you
fund
should
you into what
start
level.
visiting with them about their.
And then you all will be asked to decide, do you want to fund and at what level a grant?
okay.
And the way this has been explained to me as to why Park and Rec funds the Golden Link is because we provide other types of recreational services for different age groups. And this was the response to the older population.
Well, we support our youth, we support our seniors.
I'm not arguing, I'm just telling you that's the justification for how it came to be.
And it's a grant, because we can't spend money as a municipal entity for the benefit of private groups. They get grants from the city.
I'd like to have a discussion on the outdoor rinks. Is it worth putting them in?
I think being utilized.
I mean,
My understanding that the one in Carmen area is used frequently, that's my understanding. The one in, where's the other one, Jake?
Ray Eklund.
Eklund
Nothing.
is, I can personally attest, I go up there every night to see my dad at the villa. I've never seen anybody skate.
Yeah, and
See,
I walk
and-
every day.
So last year, we moved that one, right?
Yeah, from over on Alexandra.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that one, from what I understand, was being utilized quite a bit. Then we moved it to some place, where did it go to, the south side of town?
That was one that went to
Ray
Eklund.
Eklund.
Ray Eklund.
And that one, so we moved it from a place where it was being utilized to some place where it's not being utilized because of a light complaint, right?
Pucks.
Pucks
And like-
Pucks and light.
Yeah,
No, he's like-
I've skated on that one, it's not great.
Okay?
See, but, you know, I don't know, I try to walk all winter, and part of my walk is by the Carmen River. And there's many times where I see city staff has been there resurfaced, and those nets sit outside the boards for a couple weeks before they're moved in, so I'm just figuring nobody's up there using the rink. My other issue is blaming it on climate change, because it seems like years ago, we always had ice right at the start of Christmas break. And now it's pushing January 1st, so is it worth having outdoor ice for roughly 2 months? March, we start getting higher suns, it melts it. I mean, it's not a lot of money in the budget, but is it worth the manpower and?
$4,100
Yeah, I mean, it's $4,100.
That's what we
You all
spent last
decide,
year.
is it worth it or not? I mean, that one up at Eklund, yeah. it's
And
not.
just maybe that's just not the place for it. Maybe we need to look at other options.
Is it too much wind? I don't know.
Well, you gotta find first the land, of course, and then
Yeah.
you want it where the kids are.
Well, what about over,
Wildwood.
on Radisson?
Wildwood Park at one time had a rink.
We have a ton of city property all over the place.
I was like, Radisson, you have that huge field right
No, I'm
there.
not saying we can't, I just,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there used to be one up by the Dairy Queen.
Yeah, that,
Holman Park.
My kids used, that's where they learned to skate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, just to focus on us getting out of here before midnight.
Well, you can end this at any time.
Well, I think we need to look through
Okay.
everything and,
So are we on outdoor rinks and moving on, or are we going back?
Moving on, I just had to
Going
say
back
my
to where?
2 cents
Where are we,
worth.
where do we wanna go now?
Are we here at municipal parks now?
There we go.
Okay.
What page?
Page 21.
Anything jump out?
21. Moving fast now.
I mean, I know these conversations sometimes get off track, but this is the time, I think, that we need to talk about what we need to do for the betterment of our city and how we get them going. I mean, like we talked golf simulator today, which is probably not something that, but we need to figure out how to get some of this stuff happening within our community to make, you know, for giving families something to do.
I agree.
Well, again, I'll harken back to this. There is going to be coming forward from the EDA a proposal for marketing. I will tell you, and Audrey can attest, the numbers will jump out at you.
Well, I will also say that budget that I gave did not include marketing for the entire city, so that, those numbers could jump much higher if we were
Well,
looking
we
at it
just
that way.
assumed it was for the entire city. Okay, but there will be a plan coming
look at me like
forward
Yeah.
for exactly that. There is a marketer component. There is separate marketing
Yep.
And
budget
communication, correct?
and communication, and I don't know how much you want to say, but if you take last year's budget and multiply it by 4, you may get close. But it's coming forward.
Yep.
Our assumptions were wrong, but that's the way Carrie kind of
Yeah.
presented it to us today.
I put 3 different options together, so if at any point anybody wants to
Yeah,
discuss
well, we
different
looked
options,
at-
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, we looked at, I think it was option 2, maybe.
Okay.
Was the one with the marketer at 60 and then marketing at 140.
Okay.
But there are
Yep.
various plans, and frankly, it's a big number.
It's a big number.
If you did what was proposed, and you'll have to decide, it's like $660,000.
Well, and I think we need to also have a conversation, not just about marketing, but also about the event planner or whatever you want to call that person. That would be the one managing the schedules of different events coming in and out of there, or even just marketing those events to have vendors come in or music festival, whatever you say. But it's not just about getting people there. You actually have to have somebody that's going to be the event planner that's going to manage all of that.
And I only bring that up because,
I mean,
as you've all
I-
said,
I know it's gonna be a big number, but I think we need to give it at least a 5-year try, just to see what kind of revenue can be generated for this city and types of excitement around getting people to come here. I mean, we can't do it we can't go in it half-baked. We have to really try hard to make this happen, and I feel that
I agree, yeah.
this is, with this council, I think we have the opportunity right now to try to make some good things happen.
So,
but I just say,
Yep.
I want you all to recognize it is numbers that this council in decades have not felt comfortable
I
talking
get it.
about. So, and believe me, people sitting here want that too.
okay, can we look at line item 0312, professional fees?
Where, page?
So in the past,
What page?
21.
21, it says there was a $219,000 year-to-date. So are those all the fees related to structural engineering and,
We're in municipal
yeah,
parks.
Yeah, municipal
So
parks.
that would be our first payment,
Oh,
right, I believe, for our campground.
Okay, bam. Good, thank you.
And I see the, page, or the next page over. I take it that's for your new mower and
Yep.
how many, that 110 on
Yep, so
Hundred-
the
other
110,
improvements, yeah.
so the 110 would be for a new mower for our municipal parks.
And
And then
pickleball.
it'd be for a pickleball court resurface.
How many pickleball courts?
Two.
Two?
Yep, down in Schuster.
We could put one
Did
in
did we try to Band-Aid those and it didn't work or what?
Yeah, we Band-Aided them this year and we got the holes covered, but I think it's more of, there's,
It's well used, so pickleball seems to be big down there.
so, they just asked for it and I told them that I would talk to council and put it in a CIP. I got a quote for it this year. Actually, it was in July and, that's the number that, I feel comfortable with for next year.
And
Can I
then
ask?
Go
Go ahead, sorry.
regarding the mower now, is that used on our levees or strictly flat land? I'm just wondering if we can pull any of that out of our flood.
We could and we will use it on our levies,
So some of that money possible could come from,
possibly.
I
We
don't-
would need to justify to some degree that we're using it
Yeah.
on the levies if we pull it out of the flood account. But
Okay.
that can be accomplished by scheduling.
Yes,
okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
So I know I've asked on bigger equipment, I'm gonna throw it out there again, leasing. I just like somebody to bring some numbers to the table on leasing.
I will. I've spent the afternoon, reading up on, so I have two quotes from two different places, John Deere and Toro, for their 1600 series, so they're the 12-foot big wings and then the big deck in front. It came in at just shy of $90,000, both of them did. Same, right, same size, same thing, but it's just different company.
To lease?
Nope, to buy, but my point is I spent the afternoon reading up on like their leasing programs and what we can do with that. Scott and I are gonna meet tomorrow about it, and we are gonna make phone calls to John Deere, which we have in town, and we'll make a call to, our local Toro, rep.
And they are the lease to own and just a straight
Just a
out
straight out
lease
lease.
with the remaining value at the end. Yes.
So instead of me asking all the time on equipment that we're gonna buy, can we have that part of the proposal saying, hey, we got fire truck A, or loader, whatever the
Yes.
equipment is, we can buy it for this, we can lease it for this, and we can lease to own for, I mean, I just like to have those numbers.
You
for
don't have
everything.
to ask.
Okay,
In our discussions, we
Go ahead.
said Councilman Clot will want leasing, so as a matter of practice, we will look buy, lease to own, lease with remaining value to buy then.
okay.
I checked into leasing back in the spring. The problem was the John Deere told me to wait because their new programs were coming out at the beginning of August. So we weren't able to get those numbers because they're just starting to roll out the new lease programs.
So along with that then, is there like a state leasing program that we can piggy bank on to get like a,
That's what they're coming out with right now.
okay,
Like a fleet option?
Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
like the source well that we have for
Other-
purchasing equipment.
Yeah, yeah.
We will check to see if there's a source well lease
Yep.
to see. Plus, we will do our own checking, and we're smiling here because we said we got a checklist.
thank you.
Okay, on page 4, the coaching supervising salaries, and then also the salaries that are temporary. So we went from, in '21, from 34,000 to 54,000 proposed, and then for temporary, we went from 45,000 up to 70,000. Why was there such a significant jump?
For the 70,000, because I'm proposing to start temporary salary at $18 an hour.
And what is it now?
12,
And are we having an issue getting people?
yes.
Yeah,
And the department, we have a lot of temporary staff.
We not only have it for summer programming, but even, seems like wintertime, that CSC is run 24/7, and it's a lot of temporary. And it's, back in the day, they could rely on, the university with their football team, but that's no more a program, and I've known since then, they've really struggled to find temporary help out there.
And just another justification for it is between departments, temporary salaries differ from $12 to $13 to $18 between departments.
We've got a mower right here.
I wasn't gonna name names.
yeah, I think that's a great strategy in this day and age, because temporary people don't have benefits, they're not, they come and go when we want them to. So I think that's a great strategy to get people to come into the door and say, well, yeah, I'll do it for that. So I mean,
I can't remember where I just drove by the other day and they were advertising starting at 18 for part-time.
Yep. And we've taken that into consideration among all departments. We have a significant inability to get people.
I think the water department, don't they even have part-time mowing in the summer? They used to.
Yep, I have one.
Yeah,
That's what we're
hire
talking.
one.
Jake, is there any other budgets that have coaching besides this one?
Nope, that's, all the coaching comes out of organized rec, because that's for all the activity, like the coaching that all the.
I
youth
just
stuff.
know last year when we were looking at budgets, that there was like 2 separate accounts. So everything's where it should be now. Okay.
so do you anticipate by doing this, I mean, you get people saying, oh, I want to do it for that. Do you
I
think that's gonna
anticipate-
help with
I do.
getting, okay,
I honestly do. I mean, working for Park and Rec, we're pretty laid back, we're pretty reasonable with, if you're coming to college and you know what I mean? Like, we can work with what you have as a schedule. And if we can lock them in at 18, or maybe you start a little less, but they can work to 18, I don't know how, but I'd like to have $18 an hour in there.
yeah, I
Have
think,
you been working with the university at all?
I have
Like-
talked to Michelle Christopherson, and I have sent her stuff to help me out with.
Okay, because I would really like to see us work, well, they have a major.
Yes, they do, but they also don't have as many students as they used to, because a lot of them online.
And the baseball
And that was from
association-
Michelle that told me that.
Sorry. Baseball Association has asked the baseball coach about his guys coming and being coaches. I don't think we get anybody.
I reached out to Steve 2 years in a row and never got anyone.
Yep.
Steve?
yeah, it's the
Wow.
age we live in right now, it's just, it's unfortunate, but the only other thing I can think of is throw money at it and see if it helps, I mean,
I mean,
Or
I will
if we
say,
could
I
get-
just bumped like my wages from 16 to 18 for college students, and I went from 0 applicants to, more than I was just happily interviewing people, so.
And
It
if
was a
you,
significant jump from nothing to actually getting stuff.
and if you look across the whole budget, anywhere you see a temporary, salary line, it's, what I did is I took the hours that they worked, the total hours of 2022, multiplied it by 18, and that's the number.
To give you an example, we had a kid that worked for us for 3 summers. Come back his senior year, because he was able to get on with the county at $18.64 an hour, and he was only making 13 for us.
yeah. And I have to think what we did with our budget last year helped, like, we see the police force now is fully staffed, and they got, it sounds like he's getting a ton of applicants. So I think our strategy from last year doing that help get our full-time staff to, at least getting some applicants in the door. So I think by doing this for our temp staff, hopefully it'll help, because we all talk about these programs we want to run, we need people to run them, so.
What about that?
Jake, on page 7, the swimming pool, there was concessions of like $394, and then went down to $4 and then $0. Are we,
So we have a soda machine and we have a vending machine there. And since we haven't been open, we haven't used it. So
Okay.
There hasn't been any money coming in, so that's where the rat revenue goes to.
okay. And then this miscellaneous revenue, on the same page from, the schools, UMC, it looks like year-to-date, we've got $118,000 and some
We're only
change.
budgeting 38, so
Yeah, why?
that's a good question.
One of the reasons, and it may not be the whole explanation, is UMC
No.
is not interested in having a lease because they just don't have the use of it. They just don't have the students that use the pool.
Okay, but we went from 42 to 62 to 38 to 118.
Well, that's
And
the
again,
year-to-date
it
actual.
may be the high school, if they don't have a swim team. We're checking on that to see if they are going to even have one.
I have not heard anything if they will or not, to be honest.
It just seems like a significant dollar amount, especially with the pool not being
I'm
open
gonna
this year.
I'll circle this, Christie, and I'll look at that number because we had to reclassify some other line items in the revenue, so there might, you know what I mean, that might be wrong, 118. So I will circle it and take a look at that and see what came in, what got put into that account.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on this budget? Everybody good? For now?
Yep.
Phase one of a few more phases to come yet?
So,
many
I know I talked about this, tonight, we went through the budget, we didn't have Joel here. So I mean, I think if we're going through these meetings going forward, as long as we have a quorum, I think we need to move forward with the budgets. We can't not, does anybody
Well, I
disagree
guess
with
there's
that?
one missing tonight. The other night would have been three. My feeling is that if I get it, things come up, council members are gonna miss some council nights time to time, but I just feel at budget time, everybody should be here. It's where you ask the questions. I think it's important for council to be here at budget.
Can tell you that what we're going to do, at least from the administrative standpoint, is when we have scheduled ways and means, it will go forward. If we
So,
have 2 here, it will go forward. If we have 7, 8, it will go forward. There were, I was the one who called it off the last time. I think I've explained.
Yeah, you
why.
have, I just wanted to talk about it as a
No,
group here.
when we have it, and I think we're set on every Monday from here on out, those meetings will go forward. And if in fact someone is not here and wants to talk, whatever we're set, we will sit down with them, talk with them, not encouraging that, but whatever departments were there, and Audrey and I, we will sit down and do it. From this point forward, we're going ahead.
Well, Corky, I think the most important part is that A, these are recorded, B, that they're posted, and that council members should be going through it if they're not here. Because council members should be going through it if they're not here, because we ultimately, at the end of the day, should be able to articulate why we're making the decisions we're making.
but I just, I get it, things come up, but I just think it's very important that council try to make all these ways and means during budget time.
Also, having a little bit more of a heads up would have been nice, because we had already purchased tickets and we're going somewhere, so if we could maybe have this just a little bit more in advance, so we could have it scheduled, that's,
So you're saying, that to that point, I was like, so for this Monday, every Monday for the foreseeable future?
Right, until the presentations of the department heads are done, and then we fully expect that we'll be back here with some cost reductions. We get it.
I think once we get through the budget cycle, correct me if I'm wrong, Corky, but once we get through all the department heads, and then after that, it's just on Ways and Means on our regular council night
Yes.
to finish up the
Because what we
budget.
anticipate, so they all know, is we'll go through each department like we did tonight, recognize your comments, when those are all done, you'll give us some direction, like, here's where we wanna be, we'll know the dollar value per levy percent, and then the department heads and Audrey and I have to sit down.
Can I suggest in the future, if we go through page by page, so everybody's not going up and down, so can we highlight our questions on each page? And then everybody can ask their questions on that page and go to the next one?
We'll just start on page one. Anybody got any questions on page one? Yes or no? No? Page two.
Yeah,
We'll just go that way instead of going, Councilman Menard, where are your questions? Councilman, we'll just start on page one and go right on through, so you'll be prepared, and you'll have highlighted where you got the question. And if you can let us know ahead of time as well, so we can prepare
yeah.
answers.
All right,
Just so you know.
we good? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.